I was just 5 minutes away from home when I saw something that made my blood run cold. The dirt road I've driven for 12 years. Completely blocked. Metal barricades. Bright cones. 3 HOA agents standing like they owned the entire countryside. One of them pointed at me and shouted, "Turn around. This road is closed. Pay your fines." I stepped out slowly, boots hitting the dirt. Their faces changed instantly, confusion, then fear. Because they finally realized. They weren't stopping a homeowner today. They were stopping a combat veteran who wasn't about to be bullied on his own land. Before we dive in, drop your city or country in the comments. And if you believe in standing up to corruption, hit that like button and subscribe. Because this channel tells stories that fight for truth over power. I was exhausted. The kind of exhaustion that settles deep into your bones after a long day and a long drive back to the one place I call home, my ranch. The sun was collapsing behind the hills, painting the sky in streaks of orange and red. The air was still, the birds silent, and everything seemed peaceful until I turned the corner. For weeks, the HOA had been sending letters, threats, and random violation notices, but nothing could have prepared me for what awaited at the end of my road. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, taking a deep breath. I had no idea that in just a few moments, the quiet peace of my home would be shattered by a challenge I wasn't expecting, one that would test everything I stood for. I slowed my truck as the sight hit me like a punch to the gut. The familiar dirt road I had driven countless times, the road that had always led me safely home, was completely blocked. Bright orange cones lined up like sentinels. A heavy metal barrier cut straight across the path. Above it, a cheap printed sign read, "HOA enforcement point, no entry." 3 HOA agents stood there, clipboards in hand, as if I were a criminal trying to sneak past a checkpoint. One of them snapped photos of my truck, another recorded me on his phone, and the third, clearly the leader, planted himself firmly in front of my path, arms crossed, radiating arrogance. "Turn off your vehicle. This road is closed until your violations are paid." My mind froze for a second. Violations? On my private road? I slowly rolled down the window, squinting at their confident faces. Then, with deliberate calm, I stepped out of the truck. My boots hit the dirt. Almost immediately, the color drained from their faces. Confusion, then hesitation, then outright fear. Because in that moment, they realized they weren't facing an ordinary homeowner. They were standing in the way of a combat veteran. And they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. The head agent, a woman in dark sunglasses and a sharp blazer, stepped forward. She planted her feet firmly, arms crossed, exuding the kind of arrogance only people who believe they are untouchable can pull off. "State your name and reason for entering a restricted HOA zone," she demanded, her voice sharp and rehearsed. I crossed my arms, calm but deliberate. "This isn't a restricted zone," I replied evenly. "This is my private road. My land." Her smirk didn't waver. "Not anymore," she said, tapping a clipboard. "The HOA voted last night to assume control of this road." I raised an eyebrow. "And what legal authority allows you to do that?" She fumbled through the papers on her clipboard. "Multiple unpaid violations, road usage fees, environmental disruption." I blinked. "Environmental disruption?" "Yes," she said, pointing at my truck. "It produces dust clouds that interfere with HOA landscaping protocol." I stared at her. For a moment, I almost laughed. But the more serious I remained, the more their bravado began to crack. I took a deliberate step forward, boots crunching on the dirt. The agents instinctively stepped back, forming a line of hesitant compliance. "Listen carefully," I said, my voice low and controlled. "You are standing on my land. You are blocking my road. And you have no legal authority here. Do you understand me?" The head agent lifted her chin, trying to maintain composure. "Sir, if you attempt to cross, we will have no choice but to escalate the situation." I didn't flinch. Escalate to what? I asked calmly. Her words faltered. One of the younger agents muttered, maybe we should call the sheriff. I smiled faintly. Good. Call him. The first cracks in their facade appeared. For the first time, they realized they were no longer in control. The head agent's jaw tightened, and she gripped her clipboard like a shield, trying to hide her rising panic. Sir, she said cautiously, if you continue to display hostility, the HOA will escalate this to maximum enforcement. Maximum enforcement? Her voice trembled slightly, betraying the fear she was trying to hide. I took another slow step forward. Every muscle in my body was calm, but my presence radiated authority, the kind you can't fake. Hostility? I asked quietly, my tone low and controlled. You are standing on my property. You are blocking my road. You are threatening me. And you call me hostile? The young agent behind her flinched, whispering nervously to his superior. The third agent shifted, uneasily adjusting his stance. They tried to rattle me with threats. We can seize your vehicle, issue citations. I held up a hand, stopping their words. Touch my truck. Just try it. Silence fell over the barricade. Their bravado evaporated in the midday heat. I could see it in their eyes, the realization that they had underestimated me. They weren't facing a typical homeowner today. They were facing someone trained to handle authority and threats with precision. Move the barricade. Now, I said, calm but deadly serious. For the first time, they hesitated, unsure whether to challenge me or retreat. I knew they could feel it, the shift in control. They were no longer in charge. I was. I took a deliberate step forward. Boots crushing the dirt, shoulders squared, posture commanding. The head agent who had been shouting orders just moments ago froze. The young agents behind her shifted nervously, realizing for the first time they were no longer in control. This is my road. My land, I said, my voice calm but deadly precise. And you are standing on it illegally. I scanned their makeshift barricade, the orange cones, the metal pole, the toll box someone had drilled into my property. Every detail screamed audacity, but it also screamed incompetence. You built an illegal blockade, installed a toll box on my land, and drafted fake resolutions claiming authority you don't have? I asked, pointing at the flimsy papers in her clipboard. The head agent's hands trembled slightly. Her team's eyes widened in fear. I could see the realization dawning on them. They had picked the wrong man to intimidate. The kind of presence I carried came from years in combat, standing face to face with danger, making split-second decisions under pressure. This was no threat to me, it was routine. You thought cones and clipboards could stop me? I asked, stepping even closer. The youngest agent whispered. Maybe we should call the sheriff. I didn't flinch. I only nodded slowly. Good. Call him. The power dynamic had completely flipped. The agents, who had arrived full of confidence and arrogance, now stood frozen, unsure of what to do. For the first time, I saw genuine fear in their eyes. This wasn't a confrontation they could bluff their way through. This was a reality check. And in that moment, I knew. The barricade wasn't going to stand another second. I walked around the barricade slowly, every step deliberate. Boots pressing into the dirt, dust rising in small clouds around me. The tire tracks were fresh, deep grooves across my land. It was obvious that their trucks had churned the soil, disrespecting every inch of my property. Then I noticed the metal pole drilled firmly into the ground, a crude aluminum toll box attached to it. A handwritten label read, HOA road fee, $50 per entry. I crouched and ran my fingers through the soil. The dirt was loose, torn, and freshly disturbed. This wasn't a mistake, it was extortion, planned and deliberate. I stood up, dust brushing off my palms, and looked back at the agents. You drilled into my land? I asked, voice calm but slicing through the tension. You installed a toll box? You trespassed illegally? This ends now. Remove your barricades. Their faces were pale. The young agent's hand shook as he lowered the camera. The others shuffled nervously, glancing at each other as if searching for someone to take responsibility. It was clear now, they had no plan for this. No authority, no legal backing, no courage to face what they had provoked. I could see it in their eyes. For the first time, they realized that they were dealing with someone who knew how to handle threats the right way. And in this moment, I was in full control. I stepped closer to the head agent, my gaze unwavering. Show me the legal documents. The county authorization. The signatures, I demanded. She fumbled through her clipboard, pulling out a stack of papers full of spelling errors, inconsistent formatting, and glaring mistakes. No county seal. No board signatures. No legal authority. These are fake, I said, my voice calm but sharp. You call this authority? The young agent lowered the camera, nervous. The third agent shifted from one foot to the other. The head agent tried to speak, but her words faltered. You trespassed. You installed a toll box. You blocked my road illegally. And now you are pretending this is legal? I continued, stepping closer. Silence. The midday wind seemed to pause. Their false confidence had evaporated completely. I took a deep breath, my tone steady, almost polite but deadly. This ends now. Remove your barricades. Or I will involve the proper authorities myself. Their eyes met each other, panic spreading. For the first time, they realized they had underestimated me. Their bluff had been completely exposed. In that moment, it was clear. These weren't enforcement officers. There were three scared people standing in front of someone who wouldn't back down. Someone who knew how to handle authority for real. A siren in the distance broke the tense silence. I could see the dust cloud rising as a sheriff's SUV rolled down the road, lights flashing. The HOA agents straightened immediately, glancing nervously at each other. They had called for backup, or at least that's what they must have thought, only to realize they were about to face someone who had already exposed their lies. The sheriff stepped out, authoritative and calm. What's going on here? He asked, taking in the barricade and the agent standing frozen. I pointed at the toll box and the papers. These people trespassed on my property, installed a fake toll, blocked my road, and are trying to enforce fake violations. The sheriff walked closer, scanning the scene. He picked up the aluminum box, examined it, then looked at the papers. This isn't legal, he said bluntly. You have no authority to do this. Remove the barricades immediately. The HOA agent stammered, trying to argue, but the sheriff cut them off. Step aside and clean this mess up before I cite all of you for trespassing. Reluctantly, the agents began dismantling the barricade, muttering excuses, their arrogance completely shattered. I watched silently, boots planted firmly on my land, arms crossed. The sheriff gave me a nod, a quiet acknowledgement of the ordeal I had just handled alone. Once the last cone was removed and the toll box taken away, the agents finally left, walking back to their vehicles, heads down, shame painted across their faces. I took a deep breath, feeling the dust settle and the weight of the confrontation lift. My road was clear again. My land was safe. And the message was sent loud and clear. No one, not even an overreaching HOA, can bully a homeowner who knows their rights and isn't afraid to stand their ground. As I walked back to my truck, the sun dipped behind the hills, painting the sky with the same orange glow as when I arrived. The world seemed calm again, but I knew this story would travel far. A reminder that truth and courage always prevail over false authority.